So we watched the Sisters Brothers, which is a 2018 comedy western crime drama film, which is directed by Jacques Audiard. And in the film, it follows the Sisters Brothers, who is John C. Riley and Joaquin Phoenix, and they're Eli and Charlie. And they follow two guys who are going after gold, and that's Jake Gyllenhaal and Riz Ahmed. So that's Morris and Warm, and it follows them throughout the movie as they try to escape them the whole time, and it's set in the American West in 1851.
And it's during like the gold rush time. Uh, this kind of falls under like homestead and miners, and then also uh, it was based on a book too, and there was a previous movie done on this. Like this is a remake.
And with like the cast that they had, you'd think it was like a star-studded cast, but it really didn't do too well in the box office. Like it had some pretty bad reviews just because it's supposed to be a comedy, but there weren't that many like comedic parts in the film that made like anybody laugh. Like we all talked about it. There wasn't that many moments where we kind of like laughed to ourselves. So you kind of forget that it's even a comedy at some points. It kind of just jumps around and it's hard to follow.
Yeah,
So
it was.
I'm like, oh, go ahead.
I thought it was pretty boring. I didn't like it at all. I thought the dialogue was okay, but it wasn't stellar. Not for an $38 million film. It wasn't that good.
I mean, some plus sides. It was a really like beautifully shot film. Like I think the whole like the coloring, the color scheming of every like scene was pretty like aesthetically pleasing. It really did have like a nice soundtrack, but like as you said, like with dialogue, it was just kind of like it didn't really fit the timeline of this film. Like it was kind of like more like higher educated English as opposed to like these Westerners like from like the 1800s. Like it didn't really correlate. Um, but yeah, I think it was a really good film in terms of like showcasing like brotherhood and like how the big brother is like looking after his like younger brother and like just looking out for him and just like trying to be like the big brother and like having more of a conscience than his younger brother. But yeah, I think what was his name? Charlie? Yeah, no, Eli. Eli was definitely the more like kind-hearted. Like even though they were assassins, he was more of like the, oh, I don't really want to be doing this anymore. Like, do you really want to like keep doing this? And Charlie was just like, you know, this like drunken guy who's just like getting mad at him, like, oh, well, why would you want to give this up? Um, yeah, I definitely think he's like driven by like greed in a sense, and I think the film like talks about greed and like how greed ends up being their downfall, because like when they're mining in like the river with like Warm and Morris, Charlie like ends up like kind of like killing them because he's like getting too excited. He's like, oh no, the gold is like disappearing, like what do I do? And then he just like ends up like, you know, killing them. So yeah, it was like it's pretty awful, and it just showcases that greed is ultimately someone's like downfall.
Yeah, I agree with Kiara. I thought the movie was kind of boring. I was finding myself getting distracted. But it did have a good soundtrack, and yeah.
Yeah, I personally I like the soundtrack. I was kind of excited because I like typically Western movies because like all like the action and all that. But and I was excited with all the like all like the actors because I'm like big fans of all of them. But it's kind of underwhelming overall. Like it was a pretty decent movie, but it's also just hard to follow. And I expected like way better out of like the cast that they had.
It was definitely like a new take on the love that is typically shown in older Western movies, because this was more about brotherly love and how they can work together. And usually it's like, oh, let's go find, you know, you hurt my wife. But this wasn't like that at all.
And there was a lot of like it was a good movie, like change of heart, because originally Morris was supposed to go after and find Worm and like turn him in, but then after he saw that he was kind of just like an innocent guy trying to search for gold, he ended up teaming up with him. And then when they get attacked after like the sister brothers are coming after them and they get attacked by another group of guys, they all kind of team up and kill them, and they all decide they're gonna like split the gold. So obviously like money was driving them to kind of hunt each other down and kill each other, but it didn't stop them from like teaming up just for like the best, because they knew like they were innocent overall. So we're just gonna kill an innocent man. So I like that part where they're able to just kind of forget what they were supposed to do and just do the better thing. You know, it ended up turning out with most of them dying.
Yeah.
So one of the movies that used to be on the list was Hell or High Water, and I've seen that one, and I actually really liked it. And in comparison to this film, even though they were both released kind of during similar times, they're vastly different. Hell or High Water, in my opinion, is way better than this movie, even though this movie had, you know, bigger name actors and maybe a bigger budget. Hell or High Water was just so much better. Like the score was so much better. The overall storyline was so much better. I feel like it was shot better than this movie, and it certainly wasn't as boring.
Yeah, for this movie getting low ratings, I was like looking at the awards they won. They won like, I mean, let's see, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least like 9 to 10 awards though, and they got nominated for quite a few too. So I mean, I
Which
don't know.
is surprising that they won all those awards, but it was just such a like a bomb in the box office with only making 13 million and spending 38. And I thought it was gonna be pretty good because like John C. Riley, like I'm a fan of him because like Step Brothers and all that. He's like a funny guy, and then him being in kind of like a comedy, I figured he'd be like a funny guy paired along with like Joaquin Phoenix, who like in the Joker, he like that's where he kind of broke out and became like such like a popular actor. So I was expecting like a lot out of that, and like Jake Gyllenhaal. Like I've seen like there's like Kiara mentioned there's Jarhead, which he's in, and there's also the Ozark Killer movie with Robert Downey Jr. And I thought he was really good in that. But I feel like most of these guys, they weren't necessarily the best at pulling off like a Western type movie because none of them had really been in a movie like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a different feel for them. They're used to being in like a comedy or like a serious role, so they couldn't have like a comedy crime drama all combined. They should have just picked like one of them to follow because they had all three of those different subjects. It was kind of jumping around. Like one part would try to be funny and then it would try to be dramatic, and then there's the crime involved and it being set in the Western. It was all kind of just jumping around, which didn't really just click at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Same. You guys have anything else to add?
I mean, I like in the movie how it kind of follows like the sisters, brothers, while also jumping back and forth between like Worm and Morris, and it shows the brothers as Eli tries to kind of handle Charlie, who he's always getting drunk. He's kind of just not really responsible, and Eli has to be the big brother for him and kind of drag him along. And then when he wants out, Charlie wants back in, so he kind of just has to do what his little brother wants because he needs to take care of him. But in the end, Charlie ends up just being too much, and they have there's like a potion that Worm has to find gold, and it's very dangerous to like skin. And Charlie, once he sees that it's starting to fade, he tries to pour more in, but he doesn't know how to, so he gets it on his arm, and then Eli has to drag him out and save his brother, but he couldn't save Worm and Morris, who end up getting burnt, and Worm ends up dying, and then Morris shoots himself, I'm pretty sure. And then Charlie has to get his arm cut off. And it's just kind of like all downhill from there. And it also follows through how they get attacked by a bear and they have to go, they're just on this big wild goose chase, which in the end, they end up getting money, going home to kind of like a broken family, because originally I think it was Charlie who killed their father, who was an alcoholic when they were younger, but then Charlie kind of follows in the same footsteps and becomes an alcoholic, just like his dad. So Eli kind of just feels bad for him, so that's why he kind of sticks with him the whole time and won't let his little brother go. And then at the end, they go home to their mom, who she's kind of like weary of them, but she ends up welcoming them in, which is like just shows like the family over everything at the end of the movie, which I thought was kind of nice to end it with.
Yeah, I thought it was weird though when the Commodore died, they went to like during the brothers' visit, they went to the open casket and like Eli punched like the Commodore's corpse to see if like he was alive. Just thought that was kind of weird and like disrespectful. But I don't know.
I felt like he kind of punched him just as like, you made me go through all of this and all this like trouble and pain. So he's kind of trying to get back, and he's just like, I gotta make sure this guy's dead so he can't mess up my life any more than it already has been, because it put him through so much that he just was kind of over with. Like they only took the job because they needed some money. That was gonna be like their last one, and it just kind of didn't go too hot for them.
Yeah.
But overall, I feel like it was probably, I mean, out of 10, I'd give it maybe like a 5 or a 6. Just like hard to follow, but I had really high expectations, so I feel like that kind of knocks the grade down a little bit for me, especially with the cast and everything. Only like solid thing was maybe the soundtrack, and the potential that it had was there, but they couldn't really capitalize on it with how much it jumped around and all the different themes of the movie.
Yeah, I'd give it a 4 in comparison to the other Western like Hell or High Water that I really liked. I just didn't find this humorous at all, and all the big name actors, I feel like they didn't do an amazing job in this movie.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 6. I mean, like, it is like a pretty film, but like, it doesn't like, it's really hard to follow. It was really slow to start. Like, in the beginning, it was just like, it's like, it was too like jumpy, I feel like, and it was really hard to just like figure out, okay, what's going on? Why are these people like, why are they after this guy? Like, what are all like individually the characters, and like seeing how their story plays out was like, it was okay. It was pretty well done. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably give it like a 3 just because I'm not really into Western movies and just didn't, grab my attention. So.